Republic, it's quiet. Czech Republic, it's quite small. That's okay. Czech Republic, it's quite a small country. We have about 11 million people, and if you drive from the furthest part of Czech Republic to the furthest one, it will take around 6 hours. Yeah, so it's not very long country and not very big. And Prague itself, it has about 1.2 million. Yeah, 1.2 million. So let's go. Let's begin with. Pointing actually where we are. We are in the middle of Europe. Czechia, that's the way how we are trying to make our country known in English language. Don't get confused. Czech Republic is the official name. Around us there is Poland, Austria, and Slovakia, and Germany as well. Prague is the capital, so you see we are in the middle of like the biggest part of Czech Republic, and that's actually Bohemia, and in the middle of it there is capital Prague, and we will be mainly spending our time in the central part. That's Prague 1, and Prague 1, it's a historical core of the city that is protected by UNESCO. Yeah? So this is our plan for today. If you focus just on the middle historical part of Prague, in the middle of Bohemia, these, let's say, 5 stops are on our plan. The little man is standing on the left side. That's where the Strahov Monastery is. That's on the hill. Next to it, there is a Prague Castle. I'll try to point it out, let's say, with a little bit different color. So here, this is the Prague Castle area. And then we go down to Charles Bridge. So that's the central part on the river. And almost the last stop will be at the Old Town Square, but about 1/3 of our time we will spend in Josefov, and that's the Jewish district of Prague. Yeah? So that's the main, of course, focus for us tonight. Yeah? So let me move on. Let's move on to another slide. Oh, it looks like it stood there, so I'll try to erase that again. Yeah, here we go. Good. So I will share with you another screen with actually a video that is introduction to Prague. Yeah, just so you have an idea what is waiting for us tonight. It's a short video, just about 1 second. So here we go. There is the, yeah. Here we go. Yeah. I hope you can hear the sound. So Praha, it's a Czech way of calling the city. Yeah, Prague is the English alternative. This is the Prague Castle, St. Vitus Cathedral, the main church in our country. The royal garden of the Prague Castle. St. Nicholas Church, and that's the complex of the Prague Castle. Mother of all the towns, another nickname for Prague. And finally, Charles Bridge. All right, so it's just a quick introduction. I hope the video was working and also the sound. Could you hear that? Yeah. Perfect. Thank you for letting me know. And we can switch back to the presentation. Here we come. And we are starting with like a timeline of Czech Republic that is showing the modern history. So that means that's like 20th and 21st century, just to give you like a focus on the time where we are. Before we were independent, before we were named Czechoslovakia, we were actually part of Hungarian Austrian Empire. Yeah? So that's on the left side. And you see this part, that's Austrian Hungarian Empire. Then there was First World War, 1914 till 1918, and after that we were independent for the first time in the history. That's also when we were not monarchy anymore. Until that time we had a king and Caesar. In Czechoslovakia it's a democratical system, so we don't have a king and Caesar anymore. Then the Second World War, we were occupied by Germans for 6 years, of course, and after that we were liberated by Americans from the West. So I need to say thank you. But big part of our country was liberated by Soviet Union army from the East. Yeah, so majority of our country was liberated by Soviet Union. And because of that, we were under influence of Russia, let's say Soviet Union at that time. And just simply, I will just say it simply for now, because of that, we had about 40 years of communism. That's the red part. Yeah? And we were known as Czechoslovak Socialist Republic, communism time. That ended with Velvet Revolution, that is in 1989. So that's this part, yeah, over here. And the man on the picture, it's Václav Havel, yeah? Havel, H-A-V-E-L. And Havel was our first president, leader of the revolution. He was also a great artist and dramatician. And we were Czechoslovakia Republic for next 4 years. In 1993, we got split as Czech Republic and Slovakia. So there is no more Czechoslovakia. Very often people say that because they know us as Czechoslovakia. We don't feel offended, it's okay, but it doesn't exist anymore. There's only Czech Republic and Slovakia. And since 2004, we actually are members of European Union. It's a bit confusing that we don't have a euro still, but currency, I mean, we have a Czech crown, but we will come to that one day, I believe. So here we go. And before we start our route, can I ask you, have you been in Prague? Some one of you, like, have anyone been in Prague? You can just, type into chat or say, or just
I think we have about 3 or 4 who have been.
Okay, cool, wonderful. So we have somebody. So for some of you, it's like a refreshment of memories. For others, it's a new thing, but maybe, like a teaser for the future. Yeah. So here we come. We are starting at the Strahov Monastery that is on the left side, on the hill, actually, in Prague. Strahov Monastery is one of the oldest ones we have here. It's 12th century when it was built, and it's working till today. There's also a brewery inside, so for fans of beer, there are monks brewing the beer till today. Yeah. It's quite typical that beer is part of the monastery culture. But what is even more interesting is there are actually 2 just unbelievable halls inside full of ancient books, and I will take you there. So that's one of them. Yeah, it is called the Theological Hall, and that is actually based, of course, on the content of the hall. Yeah. Around us here, there are books that are focused on theology. There are Bibles and many other works. On the left side, I'll try to focus on that. Here on the left side, there is a spinning wheel that is actually a compilation wheel, we can call it, that is used for studying. In the times when we are today used to browsers with many lists, many windows, you can switch into them, in between them, and it's very easy. But when people are studying in libraries like this, they have these wheels over there, and you could place your books on them. And actually you could spin with the wheel and they will not fall. And you can have like 30 books open. So you can study from that quite quickly and quite effectively. Very nice idea. In the middle of the room, there are globes. The globes, some of them are from like 17th century, from a famous Netherlands family called Blair. And they are very famous for creating globes, not only Earth globes, but also like astronomical globes. And on the right side, the man over here, that's John Evangelist. And he's holding kind of like a bag. And this bag, it's like a package that is protecting books. So that's why he is in the library. Yeah. So we can move on. And on the left side here, you see like a detail of Bibles of 15th century. Altogether in this room, there's about 18,000 books, 18,000 books, and was created in 17th century. Yeah. Altogether in the Strahov Monastery, there is more than 300,000 books. There is the oldest one is from 12th century. Yeah. This is a detail on one of the globes we have there, and this is a evidence of how old the globe is. I said it's like 17th century, so not all the continents were explored. So there is a continent that is in the picture, in the window, in the red window, and I don't know if you can read that, but here it stands Hollandia Nova. And there's a question for you. What do you think is this country that is not finished on the globe? Yeah? At that time it was called Hollandia Nova, but today we know it in a different name. And as you can see, it was not fully discovered. So does anyone have an idea what is the country we are looking at on the globe? Sorry, I heard something, but not sure if I heard it correctly.
Canada or Australia?
Australia is the right way to go. Yes, this is Australia, Hollandia Nova. Above it, there is like a New Guinea and rest of the world, but Australia was not fully discovered at that time. Yeah? So good job, thank you. And this is the second hole I mentioned, actually even bigger than the previous one. It's not theological, but this is the philosophical hole. So focused on science, biology, and so the fresco up there on the ceiling, it's just stunning. It's actually a dialogue between science and religion, yeah? Ending like with 10 commandments, yeah, from religion, yeah. And inside here, there's about 42,000 books. The books, actually the shelves you see here, they're from chestnut tree, yeah, chestnut tree and chestnut wood. And originally they were delivered from another monastery that was abolished in 18th century. And they needed to adjust the room for this furniture, yeah, because very expensive furniture. And the building, they found out that the building is actually lower. Yeah? It used to be a granary room, yeah? Granary they were storing here. It's like a storage warehouse. And they needed to raise the ceiling about 5 meters. So that's about 15 feet, let's say, to fit the furniture in.
Do they allow tourists or people into these rooms? And do they allow people who are studying to look at any of these books?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, if you look in the here to the bottom right corner down here, can you see the people over here, like standing behind the line? So that's where tourists are usually allowed to go, and they are not allowed to go inside. But if you know the right people, let's say, where you can make a reservation, and I usually do that, then you can make like a special reservation and we can pass through the halls together. That's what I do with people coming here. Because it's always, much more fascinating when you're passing through it. And the reason for that is that it used to be open, but then they found out that the humidity in the room is going up and down so much that it's actually damaging the books. Yeah. So therefore, they just limited the number going daily through the rooms. And to the second part of the question, yes, people are allowed to study there. At the back, there are actually study rooms. And if you, register and you make a request, then you can study in these books, not in, like, I will say the oldest and the most precious ones. You need to have some status, like kind of being a historian, let's say, or let's say verified person who can actually borrow that. But that's the purpose, yeah. They let people study that, and there are study rooms. Of course, like nobody can take the books home, but at the back in the study room you can spend a lot of time. Yeah. So we can move on a bit. There is a couple more questions, a couple more things over here what I would like to show you, because I will go one more slide backwards, yeah, to give you like an introduction to the next slide. I need to tell you the furniture, as I mentioned, is from another monastery. So as a side effect, these doors you see on the left side, for example, and here up, they don't lead anywhere. Yeah. There used to be a staircase in the former monastery, in the previous, where the furniture comes from, but not in this one. And they were not able to do such a staircase. So they needed to find out how to make a way to get up without stairs. Yeah. I mean, without stairs from another room. And they were pretty smart. In a corner, they made this like a secret entrance and fake books, as you can see here on the left and on the right, so they can go up. Yeah. And when I go there, I usually, the custodians who are there, they open that for us to, have a look. These are fake books. So it's funny how smart they were to find a way up. Yeah. And this is a detail on the fresco. In the middle, there is God with all the angels. And here, yeah, that's actually all from the details. We can move on. Time, again, it's quite precious and we still have a lot to see. We are moving to the second step that is called Prague Castle. And for that moment, I prepared something I would like to share with you to have a better idea what is the complex of the Prague Castle. Yeah. So I will share with you like a Google Earth perspective. Here we go. So very often people are asking me, where is the Prague Castle and what is the Prague Castle? And they expect like a one building that is in the middle. And very often they make a mistake and they think that this building, this cathedral, it's the Prague Castle. I hope you can see that. It's because it's a lot of data. It's a little bit loading. Yeah. So I hope you can see that clearly. And I just wanted to present or represent with that Prague Castle, it's a complex of palaces. Basically all what you see in between the trees. Yeah. On the right side, there is a moat, and on the left side, there is a garden. So all that area, complex of about 70 palaces, it's actually the biggest royal complex with fortification in the world, known as Prague Castle. It has about 700,000 square feet. It used to be a seat of kings and Caesars, and nowadays it's a seat of our president. And the big building in the middle that very often people mistakenly think it's the castle itself, it's actually a cathedral. It's the biggest church we have, called St. Vitus. So I'll come back to the presentation for now. So I hope this gives you an idea how it looks like on the hill by the Prague Castle. And this is from another perspective. Yeah? If you look at the castle on the left side, that is in the red circle, you see it's kind of overlooking the city. And the red part where all the red roofs are, this is the old town. The historical old town. So very often when people say downtown, they imagine like a, high buildings and so, but we are in medieval Prague, and it's, this core is protected by UNESCO. So we don't have tall buildings like that over here. And also it is unified the face of the city. So if you ask for rebuilding something, reconstructing, if you live in the downtown and you want to make renovation of your facade or windows or something, you need to ask for permission, and they give you permission, but you need to use the same materials, same colors, and everything has to stay the same. Yeah. This is from the bird's perspective on the Prague Castle. So if you look at that, you see there is actually there are two big red circles. The upper one is for the garden, and the bottom one is for the castle complex itself. Where the star is, that's where the exit is. And the two yellow circles, the one stands for the cathedral and the other one is for Golden Lane. Very beautiful part of the Prague Castle. Yeah. This is the official entrance. And you see there are actually guards standing on both sides. These guards it's a tradition starting in 1918. And maybe you have been in London. Have you seen like in London, this like a show of royal guards by the Buckingham Palace?
Yes.
Yeah. So they have like a show when there is like an exchange of the guards, right? And that's what is happening here too in the middle of the day. The castle guards, the royal guards, are there standing for about 1 hour, and then they are being switched, but all the crew is being changed once in a day in the middle of the day, and there is a band playing, and it's quite nice. This entrance, it's actually used for official visitors. So that means for presidents, for prime ministers and others. And some of them came also, let's say, uninvited. Yeah. So I will give you an example. Here you come. We'll put this little aside so you can see that. So here there's an army marching, and I believe you can recognize the man here on the right. Adolf Hitler came here in March 1939, marching through the Prague Castle. This is one of the courtyards in the Prague Castle, and this one namely was used in a movie. By the way, Prague is quite famous for movies. The hall I showed you in the Strahov Monastery was used in a movie, James Bond Casino Royale, with Daniel Craig. Yeah, the first movie with Daniel Craig. This courtyard actually was used in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Yeah? But in the city, in the movie, it stands for Moscow. So you will be really confused because you think you're in Kremlin in Moscow, but it was recorded in Prague. And this is the same for James Bond. You think you're in London, but it is actually in Prague in the Strahov Monastery. Here, the flag that is on the roof, it's an official symbol, one of main symbols of our country, actually, namely a symbol of a president. When it's up, it means he is in the castle, and when it's, or sorry, in Czech Republic, and when it's down, it means he is somewhere abroad. This is the cathedral. I will show you again, full picture, because this is just the biggest and majestic cathedral we have. And it's a Gothic style. They started in 1344. And I have a question for you. Again, this is not a test. This is more to make it more fun and interactive. How many years do you think it took to build this cathedral? They started in 1344. So what do you think?
I say 200.
200. Thank you for like a brave first guess. Yeah, anyone else would like to guess? 300.
Some people are saying 300.
Yeah, I heard that. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, yeah, great job. Actually, 200 is a bit closer because altogether it took about 132 years, yeah, to build this cathedral. But I need to be honest with you, because the time frame, it's much bigger. There were actually 2 phases. Each phase took around 60 years, but in between there was a huge gap because of wars. There were 2 wars going on, and because of that they started in 1344 and finished in 1929. So almost 600 years, you count all the time frame, but the construction itself took around 132 years. It's a Gothic style, so the idea is actually to impress you with the size. Yeah? So if you look at the cathedral, it should be kind of like a wow effect. Yeah? And by the way, if it seems to you that this is kind of like a cathedral somewhere else in Europe, it's not coincidence. It looks kind of like a Notre Dame, yeah, the one that caught on fire recently, unfortunately. But the truth is that the first architect who was invited to build this cathedral was French architect. Yeah? So therefore, there is a connection between France and Notre Dame and this cathedral, Saint Vitus. Yeah? There's a lot of details, and the one we are looking at now, the front side, was actually the last part that was ended in 1929. And these gentlemen you see on the detail, if you look at their clothing, what they are wearing, can you see that? Hopefully it's like a little bit blurry because it's more in detail, but I hope you can recognize they don't wear clothing from 14th century. Yeah? This is clothing of 19th and 20th century. And these gentlemen are actually the last architects. Yeah? Josef Mokr, the one on the right, he's holding this cathedral in his hand, and Kamil Hilbert. Yeah? And then there are 2 others, František Kysela. Yeah? There are other details over here, above the door, crucifixion and others, and gargoyles all around. Yeah? Each one is different, pretty scary. By the way, do you know what is the purpose of them? They have actually several. So do you know what is the purpose for gargoyles on cathedral?
Rain.
Pardon me, for the water from rain? Did I hear correctly?
Rain.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's where I was going. Yeah, at first, of course, they are taking water away from the roof, but the other thing is also like a spiritual one, and they are supposed to scare evil away from the church, to keep it outside, basically. Yeah? Great, wonderful. And this is inside. Yeah? Imagine you're standing in the middle of the cathedral and you're looking left. So that's the picture on the left side. And then you're looking right and taking a picture, and that's the picture on the right side. Yeah? By the way, the window over here, the rounded window on the right side, it's actually story of creation. Yeah? There's actually 8 little windows going around, and each window is for 1 day of creation, because the world was created in the 7th day. And then the 8th window, it's at the beginning there was a word. Yeah. So I just want to say, all here, it's very, very symbolic, and very often I spend only, let's say at least 2 hours in the cathedral to show and speak about each single detail. So this is just an idea for you. Here, I just wanted to point out on the left side, on the top, there are like 2 red circles, and these are reinforcement bars that are holding the old part. That's how you recognize the old part of the cathedral. Yeah. They have these like steel reinforcement bars, but the new part doesn't have it. And then there is also a mausoleum down there, and there are the Czech kings and Caesars. So for example, Charles IV, Caesar of Holy Roman Empire, and also Bohemian king, he has a grave down there. Then Rudolf II, who was Habsburg, Caesar of Austrian Empire, he has a grave down there as well. And then many kings and dukes. Here at the window, I talked already about that. And this is one of the details in the cathedral at the back. This is chapel. One of them actually, like old archbishopric chapel, and you see the stained glass that is at the back, and just if you are there at the right moment when the sun is shining, the play of colors all around is just stunning and unbelievable. Another thing before we go further, if you look from the other side, we were looking from the garden, that was the first picture, and now we are looking from one of the courtyards. And this is actually showing you the golden mosaic that's over here above the entrance. This is showing actually the last days, let's say. But more importantly, one more picture of like an old picture, let's say. These are the two phases, yeah, of the construction. You see on the right side, I will took it back a little bit so you can compare to the like end effect. So the tower, including and the right side, were built as the first, and then on the left side, the entrance that I showed you with the architects, yeah, that was the last phase. But here in that room behind the golden mosaic, we have something really precious. They're actually Czech crown jewels. We are not monarchy anymore, but we still keep the jewels. We have a golden crown. There is a scepter, apple, and a coat. And the golden crown is from 14th century. So almost 700 years old, full of gold, sapphires, rubies, and pearls. And it is believed that if you take that crown on your head and you are not allowed to be king of Bohemia, then you will die in 1 year. It's kind of like a curse. And then the person that is on the picture over here, I'm sure you recognize the uniform. Yeah, it's a Nazi. And Nazi who was ruling our country in the Second World War, the main one, I would say. His name was Reinhard Heydrich. Heydrich, you can pronounce. So Reinhard Heydrich. And he was the third highest Nazi in the empire of Hitler. And he was also one of the authors, the main author of the solution of the Jewish task. And this euphemism, of course, they were using for Holocaust. So where I'm heading, Reinhard Heydrich was in that room by himself, alone. Nobody saw him taking the crown. But to be honest, I don't know how about you, but I will be very tempted to take the crown on my head if I will be there alone. And nobody saw him, but the truth is he actually came to Czech Republic in October 1941. October 1941. And he was assassinated in 1942 in May by Czech and Slovak paratroopers. And it's Operation Anthropoid. That is one of the biggest and most successful operations in the history of the resistance in the Second World War. So this was just a kind of like a quick look at the, let's say, Second World War and at Heydrich. And now we are walking down through the city. We are walking from the castle. This is Chateau staircase. This is one of the views you see on the way down. And one thing that is pretty disturbing on that view is the tower at the back here. It looks kind of like a spaceship. And this is a TV tower nowadays. And it was built by communists. So that's what you can maybe guess. Yeah. And the original purpose was to jam Western radios. So originally jamming Western radios, nowadays we use it for TV broadcasting. So I, in the next slide, prepared like a window or short focus or insight into the Czech cuisine. I hope it's okay for you. I know it's time for lunch maybe for you, so I hope it's not making you hungry. I hope you're after lunch and it will not make you hungry. So is that okay to share that with you?
Sure.
Yeah? All right. So let's start with typical Czech homemade bread. This one is kind of like a, let's say, daily bread we have. And we'll take it more aside so you see the recipe. And I also have it in my handout, so I can then send it to Rachel, and there's a recipe and also some other links and 360 degrees tours, so you can use that, and also recommendations for Prague. And so I will send it after the tour, and please, if I can ask you, Rachel, to send to everyone who is interested, it'll be great. So this one I made just by myself. Actually, I cooked that, I baked that a few months ago, and you cut it in slices, and you put butter on it, ham, cheese, and basically everything you would like. We have it for breakfast, for dinner, sometimes when people don't have time, even for lunch. Then you can have a starter like a goulash soup that looks like this. It has some potatoes, carrots in it, and on the side here you can see again the bread as a side dish, kind of to the starter. Then you have something bigger, yeah, roasted goose or roasted duck could be as well, with dumplings. That's pickled red cabbage. Dumplings are very popular here, and one of the, I would say, best known side dishes. And here another picture, I just put it there again because I wanted to show you we have more types of dumplings. So here you see them, they are like bread and potato dumplings. Yeah. And of course, I need to mention that maybe some of you know us through beer, because Pilsner type of beer, and I'm now talking about Pilsner type, yeah, not brand Pilsner Urquell, but Pilsner type of beer was brewed in Czech Republic for the first time in the history in 1842 in a city named Pilsen. So it is named after Czech city, yeah, Pilsner type. And Pilsner Urquell is kind of like a flagship for our export of beers. Yeah, and we are known as the biggest consumers of beer per person in the world. So Czech kolaches, this is something sweet we have. This is about 1 inch, filled with jam, sweet cheese, and others. Yeah. And this is just to show you an idea about the size. These are special ones, wedding kolaches. Actually, this is for our wedding 5 years ago. And my mom baked these, and she did 7,000 of these. So, so I think you can imagine what work was that. Yeah. She actually involved 5 her friends. So it's good she was not alone on that. So we are moving to Charles Bridge. Time it's running. Charles Bridge is one of the biggest highlights of the city, and it is the oldest bridge we have that was built in very special date, full of odd numbers. Yeah. So they start the construction in 1357 on 9th of July at 5:31 in the morning. Yeah. So 13579 and back again to 1. That's not coincidence. Yeah. Charles IV, he just trusted astronomers and numerologists, and he was waiting for this date 11 years. So the bridge will be built. And I don't know, maybe it's a secret recipe, but it's still standing till today. We call it outdoor gallery because of 30 statues that are there, mainly Christian themes. Here you have a look from a tower. There are actually 2 towers. One is here, and the other, it's where the picture is taken from. And these are like defense towers. Maybe, I hope it's not too overwhelming. Do you have any questions for now? Would you like to ask something? Or all good so far?
So is that bridge only a footbridge at this point?
Yes, that's a great question. It is only pedestrian footbridge, and even you are not allowed to cycle across the bridge. You need to push the bike, according to the law. And daily in the season, in like high season of tourism, there's about 30,000 people crossing this bridge. 30,000 people. Altogether in a season, every year we get about 15 million tourists coming here. It's among top 10 visited cities here. And for Prague, tourism is the main income. Yeah. So Prague has 1.2 million and 15 million, it's coming every year. So more than 10 times Prague, but fortunately not at once. Yeah. So this is a special picture that you can take only in the COVID time or in the night when it's empty. And this is kind of like a real life, let's say, because you see here bands and also beggars. And here some, they're selling a lot of stuff over there, or making, painting you in a funny way. And there are other statues over here, Wenceslas, Norbert, Sigismund, and also, of course, crucifixion. But this one, it's also with a Hebrew sign. That's actually part of the anti-Semitism, since we are like from a JCC. This was actually punishment to one local Jew who was supposed to make fun out of Christ, and it was never proved. And based on revelation of Holy Spirit, he was punished. Yeah. So that's actually one of evidence of the oldest hate in the history of the humankind, anti-Semitism, that this is a story of 17th century. Yeah. So there were times, and we will talk about that in the Jewish town soon, when it was more, anti-Semitism was bigger, sometimes it was a bit smaller. Yeah. So this is one of the examples. And this is Charles Bridge, 1872, one of the biggest floods that damaged a big part of the bridge. But fortunately, at first it was bypassed like this, but then rebuilt thanks to one big sponsor. His name was Hlavka, one architect. And now we are at almost the last stop, Old Town Square. And just quickly, because I would like to spend more time in the Jewish town with you, of course. So this is actually, let's say, the main meeting point in the city, known Old Town Square. We have evidence that the oldest settlement in this area was 10,000 years ago. Yeah. Wow. 10,000 years ago. Of course, we don't have written records about that. First written records are about like 10th century. There's actually one message or one recording from a diary of Ibrahim ibn Jacob, who actually made a note about a city of 100 spires when he was traveling to Prague for trade. So it was a Jewish tradesman who entered the city, and we have his recording, his diary, as the first written record about Prague. And the biggest highlight over there is the astronomical clock of Prague. In the handout that I will send to you, there is actually a link to the show of it. There is a show going on. You can read here a lot of stuff. This is a detail of the clock. You can read here actually 4 different times. There's a position of the sun. That's the upper arrow. Position of a moon. If it's like a full moon, half moon, and so on. So a lot of details. There's a skeleton over here on the right side, who is symbol of death, starting a show every full hour. And in the show, there are blue windows that will open, and 12 apostles are running in the windows. This clock was installed in 1410. Again, more than 600 years. This is working. Of course, we don't have the original figurines because they were damaged and destroyed. Lost in 18th century, and then those from 18th century were destroyed in the Second World War. So yeah, there's a lot of details, but one other thing I would like to show you is the City Hall. This is actually before 1945. That's where the clock is on the left side. Yeah, here there's the astronomical clock, and this is how the City Hall looked like before 1945. In 1945, there was big damage caused by Nazis because this was seat of Czech resistance. Here you see the result after fight. And because of that, we needed to take it down. By the way, here, that's where the clock is. I will try to point it out in a better way for you. So you see it better over here. Yeah, that's where the clock is. Yeah. Also destroyed and damaged. So it was a big disaster. And unfortunately, we don't have the original building today. Yeah. And finally, we are getting to Prague Jewish town. So at first, let me show you where we are on the map. So that's the last circle, and it's named Josefov. Josefov, it's named because it is named after Joseph II, who was Habsburg. He was son of Maria Teresa, living in 18th century. And since 14th century, Josefov used to be district dedicated to Jews. And it was surrounded by walls and gates, and it was basically a ghetto. Yeah. Jews were not allowed to move out from there. And the first moment when they were allowed to do that was under Joseph II in 1781, when he basically published a law of tolerance when Jews were allowed to move out from the ghetto. And therefore, after 400 years almost, yeah, they could move out, and they keep it as a respect and honor. They named it after Joseph II. Yeah. This is the area itself, the red circle, and is right by the river, because actually it was the worst place in the town. It was the lowest one in the city and closest to the river. And when the river, got high, and that was quite often, it was the first flooded area. So you can imagine the level of hygiene, level of housing there, narrow streets. Nobody wanted to live there. Yeah. And one of the biggest ironies, and I hope this will be more encouragement for you, is that nowadays this is the most expensive and most prestigious district of Prague. We will come to that soon, but I wanted to share that with you. So Josefov, and here these arrows are showing you synagogues. Yeah. We have about 16 synagogues in Prague. About 6 of them are in the Jewish district, and the others were built later after Jews were allowed to move out. Yeah. So the oldest ones we found only in the Jewish district over here. And only 2 of them are working for services, for Shabbat. The others are serving to the Jewish Museum, that's using it as like exhibition areas for Jewish history. Okay. So here is a picture of the old Jewish town before it was renovated. So that's what I wanted to show you, that you see it's quite packed. A lot of people living there in narrow streets, not very high quality housing. And this is the oldest synagogue we have. It is called Old New Synagogue. I admit it is not a very creative name, Old New Synagogue, but we used to have one that was older, but we don't have that one anymore. So this this one we are looking at was called a New Synagogue at that time. And since we lost the older one, then the oldest was called the New Synagogue, and it didn't make sense. So we renamed that as Old New Synagogue. And to give you an idea about how old is that, this was built between years 1270 till 1280. So it is even older than the cathedral we saw at the Prague Castle. And it is the oldest still working synagogue in Europe. So this one is the one that is still working. By the way, for holidays, Simchat Torah, this is the only synagogue in Prague you can go around with Torah. So that's why it is celebrated in this Old New Synagogue. This door that is on the right picture circled, it is believed to be a resting place of a mythical giant known as Golem. Golem. Have you ever heard about Golem before?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's one of the typical Czech Jewish stories. I will show you another picture. Here you see creation of Golem. On the picture, there is the most known rabbi. His name was Rabbi Lav. He lived at the end of 16th and the beginning of 17th century under Rudolf II. And he is still, till today, considered as the biggest and most meaningful rabbi in the history of the Prague Jewish town. His name is Yehuda Liva ben Bekalel, Rabbi Lav, or with nickname Maharal, teacher. And on the picture, we see him by creation of Golem. So that's the guy with the head on the left side. He was like a giant with a secret formula based on Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism. And with that formula, actually, he was given life. But since Rabbi Lav was not God, he was not able to give him like a full life, like to a human. So he was kind of like something in between, like a human, something between like a robot, let's say. And you can wake him, you can take him to sleep. Anyone who woke him up with this secret formula could give him orders, and he would, follow your orders. And he was sleeping 6 days a week. He was awake 6 days a week, and only for one day he was sleeping, and that was for Shabbat. Of course. So one day, actually, Rabbi Lev, before the service, before Shabbat started, he went on a visit of an ill person, and he was kind of running a bit late to the synagogue, and he forgot to turn off Golem. And Golem was never on before on Shabbat, and therefore he didn't know what to do. So he was kind of like, walking through the city, looking around, hitting houses, causing some damage. And then when people told Rabbi what is going on, he actually ran away, turned off Golem, and put him into the attic of old new synagogue, into the door where we are looking at, to sleep forever. So that's why I'm talking about him. That's why I'm telling you the story. The main purpose of Golem was actually to protect the Jewish community, and because in the history it was, attacked within pogroms, and whenever there was a tension in society, they were attacked many times. So they needed someone like that. So that's the story of Golem. Here is another picture of him with his creator. There is all his name, as I mentioned. And on the left side of the screen, there is a picture of the Jewish cemetery, the oldest one you can visit in Prague. And this is the tomb, the one that is like a 4-wall tomb. This one, it's the tomb of the Rabbi Lev, who died at the beginning of 17th century. The Jewish cemetery is very exceptional place, and I have a couple of pictures from that as well. But first of all, I would like to show you how it looks like inside in the old new synagogue. I have a question for you. What do you think is the little room, this like on the left side with a door and 2 windows? What do you think is that for? This is inside of the old new synagogue in the corridor. So do you have any idea? Well, please, a little louder. I didn't hear.
They're saying a mikvah.
Ah, okay. Actually, no, it's not for that. Any other ideas? Please, one more time, a little louder.
She said a room for punishment.
Oh, room for punishment. That's creative. But no, it's not that. Actually, this is basically cash desk. This is for money.
Oh.
Yeah. And there are 2 like that in the corridor. One was for Prague, and one was for all the Czech land, at that time called Bohemian Kingdom. That was a tax the Jews had to pay to the king for protection. This was one of the reasons why they learned so well with money. And the other reason was, I mentioned that the Jewish ghetto was a closed area, and they couldn't move out from there. And on top of it, they could not do any craft outside of the ghetto. Yeah. That was because of the competition. It was a lobby, I would say. Yeah. And the only craft they were allowed to do in 14th century until 18th century outside of the ghetto, the only craft was lending money on interest. Yeah. And that was because Christians considered that as a sin. Because of that, Jews were allowed to do that, and everyone needed a Jewish banker. Yeah. So each Caesar, each king had a Jewish banker, and they were usually the richest person, of course, in the Jewish community. And we will speak about them a little later, but just wanted to give you an idea of the history and how it is shaping us for today. Yeah. So this is a detail about the entrance to the main hall. Of course, we have here basically vineyard or wine tree with grapes, symbol for fertility, and also 12 roots symbolizing 12 Israel tribes. Yeah. And this is inside. Yeah. This is how it looks like inside. Here, of course, in the middle, there is Bima. And here at the back, in Aron HaKodesh, there are actually all scrolls of Torah. You can see the light over here, and the furniture it's little from like a later period, so it's not original. But if you look at the walls, this is original. If you look at the windows over here in the left corner, these like a teeny tiny windows, they're leading to the women rooms. Yeah, there's like a women gallery. And this is connected to the main gallery only through these windows, so they cannot see the rabbi, but only hear what he's saying. And that was added later, this like a women gallery. It's an Orthodox synagogue, of course. So we talked about Bima. It's an example. I don't think I need to show you this example of Torah with pointer. And here, this is, if you look at the walls, there are actually quotations from Bible, from Torah, excuse me, from Torah and from Talmud, of course. And here, this is look up to the ceiling, typical sign of a Gothic construction, where we have this like a four rib ceiling. This, in this case, with a fifth rib on the left side, because each wall, actually there are two walls, and the walls against each other, they have, each one has 6 windows for 12 Israeli tribes. And to enforce the ceiling, they needed to put these ribs, enforcing the ceiling in between the windows. So therefore, there is not typical 4 rib vaulting, but 5 rib vaulting, very exceptional. And when we go out, this is again on the left side here, you see part of the old new synagogue. And on the right side, with the tower with the clock, this is the Jewish town hall. If you come closer, you will see this symbol. Of course, David Star, very familiar to all of us. But what is in the middle? What do you think is the thing here in the middle? Do you have an idea?
An etrog?
One more time, please.
It looks like an etrog to me.
Etrog. Yeah. Actually, it's not. It is a hat. Yeah. It's a hat. Actually, it used to be a yellow hat. And that was the sign that Jews had to wear in the 14th century as a sign for recognition of Jewish person. Yeah. So we know these symbols from like a Second World War, from very sad times, when Jews were supposed to wear the David Star on clothing. But this was not the first time. They actually had to wear different symbols within all the history. Yeah? So in this time, yellow hats on the street, basically wherever they were, they had to wear this to be recognized. And later on, there were like yellow circles, then yellow stars, because yellow, it's color for heretics. Yeah? So that's why all these signs are yellow. And for Jews, it was the main symbol, this hat. So therefore, they put it in the like middle of the David Star as a symbol for Prague Jewish community. So there is a clock in Hebrew, clock with Roman letters up here. And this is the Jewish cemetery. The oldest cemetery you can visit in Prague. They started to bury people there in 14th century, ended in 18th century when they could move out. And they were quite quickly running out of space. And because of that, and they could not move out, there was no way how to make the ghetto bigger. They had only one option. They put the people into layers on top of each other. So you will find there places where there's about 10, 12 layers of persons on top of each other. And therefore, the tombstones on the top are so packed. Therefore, it is so many of them there, because they always took the stone up because they wanted to know who is in the like a bottom level. This is actually how it looks like from the street. You see the tombstones over here where the arrow is pointing? So that's how it is high compared to the street level. Because there are stones typical, I don't think I need to explain that to you. And they have there also one of like, let's say, little weaning wall that is made out of the oldest tombstones that needed to be replaced because of a construction of a museum. Yeah. It was a big shame, but that is again one of the examples of disrespect to the tradition. And Jews, local Jews in 19th century, when that happened, they moved to these stones and made kind of like a Wailing Wall from these old 14th century stones. So you see these like little letters with prayers. Rabbi Lev, again, we talked about him. That's the most known rabbi. A few other examples of the tombstones. There are symbols on some of the tombstones, like here, fish, showing carpeles, name carpeles, because carp, name of a fish. Very often the German names, the original German names, come from cities where the people are from. So very often it's like Brandeis, for example, because there is a city called Brandýs in Czech Republic. Then they were named after different other things, like, let's say, carp, because maybe for that area it was typical fishing. They could choose that actually on their own in 18th century when they were allowed to move out, and under Joseph II, because one of the conditions for moving out was that they will assimilate. And one of the assimilations was to accept German names, because German was official language of Austrian-Hungarian Empire. And that's where the German names are coming from. And because of that, we have also archives with all the names coming from 18th century. And these books, these archives were misused when Hitler came here in the Second World War. He had track of Jewish families since 18th century. This is one of the synagogues, Pinkas synagogue, second oldest, 16th century. And inside there is a memorial to the victims of the Second World War. And I believe the date you chose, it's not on 27th of January, it's not coincidence, because today it's day of Holocaust, when Auschwitz was liberated. And here you see Auschwitz on the upper part of the names on the right side, and Terezín on the left on the top. That's a concentration camp in Czech Republic. But it was not extermination camp, it was usually a transit station for Auschwitz. As you can see, this synagogue doesn't work anymore. There is not Torah in it, but it serves as a memorial. The memorial, it's actually one of the parts, it's our names on walls. There's about 80,000 of them. 80,000 names written by two persons for about 5 years. There are three colors. Yellow one stands for the city where they came from. Red one, it's for the last name. And the black color, it's for the first names or for date of death, when, if we know that, if you know that from archives. These are victims of the Second World War, and before the war there was about 118,000 Jews living before the war. About half of them was in Prague, and about 80,000 were killed. Nowadays we have in Czech, in Prague, actually, there's only 1,600 Jews registered. Only 1,600 out of 60,000 before the war. And the rest, if you count with me, the rest till, let's say, 120,000, those emigrated majority. After the war to Israel, it was established in 1948 in May, and in the middle of communism, because since Israel was oriented on the Western world, so many of the political trials were against Jewish members of the Communistic Party. So that's another big chapter, and I know we are already over time, so I'm sorry for that, but it's so many things to say. Is it okay if we go 3 more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. So since we are talking about this topic, there are other things that serve as a memorial. These Stolpersteine, maybe you have seen them somewhere around the world, because they are not only in Prague, they're also in Europe. Stolpersteine, it's in German, and it means basically, or it could be translated as stones of disappeared ones. So those who disappeared. These two I took picture of are the only ones in Prague that are in English. In loving memory of Klára Málerová and Karel Mahler. Don't be confused, this OVA, OVA at the end of the last name of the lady, it's actually just Czech language showing it's a woman, it's a female last name ending, but they were, it was a mother and son. So she was born 1883 and he 1920, murdered by Nazis in Auschwitz in 1942. And this is in front of houses where we have the last address of those victims, and it is in the sidewalk. So it's very sensitively kind of like part of the town, and you can overlook it quite easily. But if you're really looking at, like under your feet, you will see some of these. There is more than 400 in Prague of these. Another synagogue, Michal synagogue, that served to Mordechai Meisel, banker of Rudolf II. So it was his private synagogue. Nowadays, it is a part of the Prague Jewish Museum. Klausen synagogue, that's next to the Jewish cemetery, as you can see, the tombstones on the left. This is 17th century synagogue. Again, serves to Prague Jewish Museum, showing basically all the traditions and holidays like Simchat Torah, Savut, Sukkot, and then also, of course, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and others. Ceremonial hall. This is pretty new synagogue, but it is standing on a place where it was like a hall of a burial brotherhood, the brotherhood that was taking care of those who died and also of their families. So basically charity. Inside there is exhibition that looks like this, and they're showing the traditions, all the things that are needed to be done when someone dies. And last one, but not the least impressive, Spanish synagogue. And don't be confused. It is not named after Sephardic Jewish community, because we have in Prague only Ashkenazi Jews. Yeah, it has a name Spanish synagogue because of decorations. This is the newest synagogue we have, 19th century Reformed synagogue, and this is a Moorish style, so therefore Spanish. Yeah, you see the altar is at the back. There's organ on the upper right corner, excuse me, in the balcony, and this is how it looks like if you look up to the ceiling. Yeah. Just unbelievable. Yeah. Part of it serves also as a Jewish museum. There are actually like a modern history, these like a political trials in the communism time and so on. And that's all from my side for now. I would like to thank you very much for, I know it's not easy, watching something, sitting and being here with me for 1 hour. So I hope I kept your attention for a moment, and thank you very much for being here with me. And I would like to leave now some space for questions, because I promised that to you. So if you have any question that is in your mind that was not answered, please, now is the time.
Anyone? Do many people go, many tourists go to Jewish town, not only Jewish tourists, but is it a popular place to go see the history?
That's a good question. Yes, it is a very popular place to go to see the history. I would say majority of the tourists who are here go at least to see the exteriors. So you need to actually buy a ticket to walk through the synagogues and through the cemetery. So not everyone is doing that, but I would say definitely vast majority goes through the Jewish town at least. Together with Prague Castle, Charles Bridge, and Old Town Square, Jewish town is one of the biggest highlights of Prague. Because it's very well preserved. Yeah, actually, that's the main point. It's very well preserved.
So someone just asked what the population of Prague is.
Thank you, Rachel, for helping me. Yeah, we have about 1.2 million inhabitants, and only 1,600 nowadays are registered in the Jewish community. But their guesses, there is more Jews living who are not registered. Let's say 3,000, 3,000 till 4,000 are the guesses.
All right, I don't think we have any more questions.
Okay. Thank you for the applause. It's very nice.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. And Rachel, thank you for organizing that. I'm really pleased and appreciate that. And if anyone would like to have a look what are the things you can see in Prague, you can feel free to visit my website that is on display, realpraguetours.com. And after the tour, I will send the handouts to Rachel. And if anyone will be interested in more details, links, and more info about Prague recommendations, that's what the handout is for.
Sounds great.
Okay, so for now, all from my side. Have a great afternoon for you, and hopefully maybe one day in person. So thank you very much for being with me, and greetings from Prague to all around the US.
Thank you.
So bye from Prague for now.
Bye-bye.
They do anything that's like extended like a week there where you go